Good afternoon, everybody. I am going to be redoing the purchase contract because I've added the disclosures and advisories. So I'm going to try to get this done in one take. This is if you were an agent explaining these disclosures to your buyer. This first form here, if you were my buyer, I'd bring you in the office, welcome you in, congratulate you on purchasing this, on the first steps of purchasing your house. And I would tell you that this first form that I'm going to ask you to sign is about explaining to you my duties to you as a realtor. And I have a duty to be of skill and care, to be honest and fair, and to disclose all facts. And if you would, buyer, if you would just sign right here for me, Dudley, I'd greatly appreciate that. Perfect. This next form just is a civil code of disclosures. Now, here we're going to get started on the purchase agreement. This first page right here is who represents who, price and terms. It looks like ABC Realty represents the seller and HomeSmart in this situation represents the buyer. You're going to be offering the seller $500,000. We will be closing this transaction in 30 days with a $5,000 deposit. You're also going to have 80% down, so you're going to be financing 400,000 for a total down payment of $100,000, 95 that you got to bring in a title, 5,000 which will already be entitled because of your deposit for a total purchase price of 500. I just need you to initial here at the bottom, acknowledging receipt. The second page here is about compensation and contingencies. We're going to be asking the seller to compensate me the agreement that you agreed to pay me 2.5%. I'm asking your obligation to pay me. I'm going to ask the seller to pay that at 2.5% in this paragraph 3G3. There's 9 contingencies in the purchase agreement. One of them is an optional contingency. We're not going to be using the optional contingency, which is you have something to sell in order to buy. Here's a list of all the other contingencies. If you like, I can go over them with you. If not, we can just continue on. A contingency is just your way out of the contract. When you remove those contingencies in writing, you're telling the seller that I will put my deposit at risk. I just need you to initial at the bottom. This page right here deals with items included, excluded, and who pays for what. So in this first line, we're going to ask the seller to pay, to give you the refrigerator that you requested. And the bathroom mirrors are just like it's by default, they stay. If you have any items that you'd like to exclude, we can write them out here in this line. And this one right here is who pays for what? Who pays for the NHD or the Natural Hazards Known Disclosure Report? If it's you, the seller, or if you're both going to split it. If you check both, it's going to be deemed otherwise that it will be split 50-50. If both is checked, cost to be split equally unless otherwise agreed. Okay. And as we continue on down, we're going to say it's going to be Snap NHD that's going to be providing this report to you by the seller. And smoke alarms will be dealt with the seller. We're not asking the seller to take care of any government required inspections or reports. Don't really deal with that here in the Central Valley. Escrow is going to be both. We're going to split this 50-50, ask you monument escrow to be part of title. And here it says if title is different, which it's not. So we're just going to leave this blank, asking the seller to continue to pay us for the title insurance policy as well. County tax, by default, it's well, not by default, we're asking the seller to take care of that. And Old Republic home warranty is going to be, we're going to be requesting them to take care of the home warranty. We're asking the seller to pay for that as well. Just initial at the bottom, acknowledging receipt. This is adding addenda and financing. If you want to add any extra addenda to this, we would do this in paragraph 4. We don't have any extra addenda, so we're going to continue on down. This just explains the kind of financing you're going to do. What first loan, additional finance amount, your status of your loan. If it's FHA or VA, but we check by default it's conventional, so this really doesn't pertain to you. So, and we need to verify your down payment as well. We've got 3 days after acceptance to be able to give the seller some documentation proving that you're qualified to purchase. I just need you to initial at the bottom, acknowledging receipt. Possession, buying as is, and removal of contingencies. How we're going to be dealing with possession is going to be in this top line, paragraph 7A. Buying as is. It's the property shall be delivered as is in its present physical condition. So the seller can't damage the property after acceptance takes place. They still have to maintain it. And removal of contingencies, they can only be done in writing. Okay. Just for initial at the bottom. We're going to continue on here on page 6, review and acceptance or decline of leased items, leased or liened items, actually. And it tells you here, buyer's review of leased or liened items. You got a right to, if the seller has a solar system, an alarm system, or a water softener that they are leasing, or if it is liened, then the seller is going to ask you to take those over And you've got a right to say, no, I'm not going to take that over, or yes, I will. You can request of the seller pay these items off. These are up for negotiation. And as we keep on going down, we're going to be going to page 7, reinspection fees and disclosures. You see, I highlighted it. It said that there's going to be, if there's any reinspection fees, that the seller shall be responsible for those costs. And here we've got a list of all the disclosures that the seller is going to be providing for you. In fact, it continues even on page 8. More disclosures. And talks about lead-based paint disclosures, home fire hardening disclosure. Talks about taxes, how taxes are going to be dealt with. After close of escrow, I would encourage you to contact the assessor's office just to make sure, because you're responsible to pay those taxes that are due. You might get a bill, and you also might get free money. That's not free money. The county might be asking for that, or the city. All right. So, talks about the Megan's Law database disclosure, the environmental hazards disclosure, the economy and plan development disclosure. And keep in mind, there's dates to all these. The NHD is 1960. Now you got the home hardening to 210, and you have lead, which is 1978. I just need you to initial at the bottom, acknowledging receipt. You have a right to investigate. And your right to investigate is going to be, it's going to be like this. You can either do a home inspection, lead-based paint inspection, or you can ask for other inspection, which is roof, pest, all these other inspections that be coming along with it. You would do that here, and it explains what you can do in paragraph 12. And then title is going to be mentioned in paragraph 13. I just need you to initial at the bottom. This is how we can request for repairs, and the seller has not obligated to agree to make those repairs. They can just say, no, I'm not. They can ignore you, but we still have a right to request, and how notices are going to be delivered, and your cancellation rights. It talks about notices here: buyer's right to cancel, seller contingency. So the seller's going to have to give you a notice of buyer to perform, delivering a buyer a notice to perform. This is the notice that the seller can give you if they're asked you to remove contingencies or your obligations contractually. If you don't, then the seller can unilaterally cancel you. This page right here, page 11, deals with types of notice and how repairs shall be done and compensation owed to the broker. And so the notice of buyer to perform, that's one notice. A demand to close escrow is another notice. And repairs, they should be done in a skillful manner. And as far as compensation goes, the broker is entitled to compensation for helping you buy the home that you just love. So I just need you to initial right here at the bottom. Here's some of the broker's duties: escrow and compensation. It talks about it continues on with this page, what we discussed in the previous page. And if you have no questions, we'll just continue on down, just initial here at the bottom. These are defining terms in paragraph 25, and there's many of these terms that are scattered throughout the contract about what does acceptance means. What is an agent? I'm your agent. Well, what does that mean? And what are my duties? Agreement means only if both parties signed the documents. Agreement is not when only one party signs. As is means you're buying it as is, but as is does not mean you not know what as is means. And it continues on down. But I think the most important one is how we count days. Once the day happens, that's day 0. And then at midnight, then day 1 begins. And at 11:59 p.m. on the first day, day 1 is over. And then at midnight, day 2 begins. And so that's how we count days. But there's several different types of days. We have business days, days prior, days after, and calendar days. So if you have no questions, we're going to continue. Just initial right here, acknowledging receipt. This page here is page 14. This one is dealing with disputes. Liquidated damages, that's your deposit. That's the deposit is the amount that either the seller or the buyer agree that you cannot go after any more than my deposit. That is as much as you can take if we have any disputes and we can't handle it. Mediation is we're going to small court, no jury. Arbitration of disputes is big court, judge, jury, all that fine stuff. Just initial here in this box, agreeing to this arbitration dispute. And also when you initial in this box, you're agreeing to liquidated damages. It takes the seller to agree to this too. Both parties have to agree. If both parties don't agree, then there is no agreement. Initial here at the bottom, acknowledging receipt. Entity sales and signature page. If this was going to be an entity, then what would happen is the buyer would say, I'm buying this in my trust or my corporation. They would check this box and they would fill this out. But right here, Dudley's just going to sign there and fill this out. And once they sign it, then they're agreeing to the pages that they initial. Whenever you initial, you're acknowledging receipt. This page here deals with the seller's entity and the seller's signature. As we continue on down, this is the broker and title page. And we continue buyer's investigation advisory. This is just me giving you advice. Whenever you see the word advisory, it's me giving you advice. As getting ready to wrap this up, the possible representation, more than one buyer or seller. This means I might be working with people just like you. In fact, it says maybe working with many prospective buyers at the same time. May have other listings on many properties at the same time. So I might be working with people just like you. We cannot discriminate. We've got to make sure that we treat everybody fairly. And this final page is dealing with homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance is make sure that you try to get homeowners insurance as quickly as possible to make sure that you can not only kind of get it, but also that it's affordable for you. So I got one more page to go. And this is wire fraud and electronic funds and transfer. Don't ever wire any money without you first talking to your escrow officer. Very important to get the wire number and the routing number. And made a mistake, got one more. This is it. And this is some of your information will be shared. Not all your information is going to be private because your information will be collected. And then that's just how things work. So some people are going to get access to your emails and the home that you bought and the tax records and all that fun stuff. So that's pretty much it. Hope this helps.